Hello, it's week 19 of season 5 of the Andy Griffith Show. This week's episode title is The Lucky Letter. Barney, Andy and I are in the courthouse going through the morning mail. And we get a notice about the shooting qualifications coming up for my deputy recertification. And then I get a chain letter too. And I open it and I read it aloud. Dear friend, this is a chain letter, and for your own sake, the chain must not be broken. Make 2 copies of this letter and send them on to friends whom you cherish. Thus you will be blessed with good fortune. And then I say to Andy, I wish folks would stop sending these things. But then you go ahead and start making 2 copies of the letter, saying you don't necessarily believe in chain letters, but you don't mess around with them either. And you say it's not superstition, it's just caution. But Andy calls me superstitious. And I say, I am not a superstitious person. I'm a cautious person. My mother was cautious. You want to see how superstitious I am? And I doll up the original letter and the copy, and I throw them both away. And the next day Floyd asked me whether I passed along that letter, and I say, I might have known it was you who sent it. And I call him superstitious, and he says he's not. And he asks me what happened to my neck. And I say, now don't go making a big deal out of nothing. I just nicked myself shaving this morning, that's all. And he says it's starting already. And he notices a bump on my forehead. And I say, yeah, I bumped it, and it has nothing to do with your stupid letter either. And he says, you better not break that chain, Barney. And he says he didn't break it, and he got a $1 tip first thing this morning. And I say, well, now that proves to the hard analytical mind exactly nothing. And I'm not sending that letter on. And Floyd says, some terrible things might happen. And I say, a peace officer can't get the reputation of participating in superstition. And I walk off. But then I get my foot driven over by a truck. And I yell at Norman, the driver. And then Opie tells his pa that Floyd said that Barney is jumpy because he got a curse on him because he didn't send on that chain letter. But his pa tells Opie that a chain letter doesn't mean anything, and that Barney will learn that, and that Opie shouldn't believe in them either. And then on patrol, Andy offers to drive the car. And I say, oh, so now I can't even drive the car, is that it? You're afraid to ride with me, is that it? Just in case you're worried, I won't make a move driving without you. Now tell me, is everything clear to pull out? But then I duck into a parked car, and back in the courthouse, Andy tells me to sit down. And I say, who can sit down? Don't you know that qualifying is tomorrow? Don't you know that? What's going to happen then? Have you ever tried to pistol shoot when you're jinxed? It can't be done. And Andy says I'm not jinxed, and I say yes I am. I'm going to fail the qualifying. I'm going to be off the force, and it's going to be his fault, because he told me not to send back that chain letter. And Andy suggests I spend a nice relaxing evening with Thelma Lou to calm down. And I say that's a good idea. So you call her up, but since it's not y'all's regular date night, she had already made other plans to glue covers on church hymnals with Edgar Coleman, and that just makes you mad, and she hangs up on you. So I call Juanita down at the diner, and Sarah questions that, and I say, I don't care whether you think I ought to call Juanita or not, just get her. But she's not there, so that makes me feel even more jinxed, and I go out to the city dump, and I look for that chain letter to mail it off. I figure that's my only chance to do well in the qualifying. And Andy finds me down there, and he offers to help. And he finds a girly magazine that I subscribed to and had thrown away, and he starts kidding me about it. And I say, why don't we just forget about the magazine, Andy? I mean, my whole career as a deputy is just hanging by a thread, that's all. But we can't find the letter, so I go home. And the next morning, Goober brings to me his copy of the letter that Floyd had sent to him, so I can copy it. So I start copying it. But then you realize that Andy had Goober bring it over to show you that only Non-intellectual types like Floyd and Goober even believe in these letters. So you get all flustered. You don't know what to do. So you tell Andy to make the decision about whether or not to send it, and you walk out. Meanwhile, Andy calls Thelma Lou. And Thelma Lou shows up at the shooting range just as I shoot for my qualifying, and that gives me the confidence to do well. And I say, all it takes is a keen eye and a steady hand. I guess I was born with those things. And then Andy shows me the chain letter he never sent, but then he and Thelma Lou see the rabbit's foot and the four-leaf clover that I'm carrying. And I say, don't start in on that superstition thing again. It's caution, just caution. The next day, though, Andy catches me going off to nail the chain letters. But then somebody runs over my foot again. Oh well, we'll see you next week for episode 20.